I lost 14 kilograms in 6 months. Not because I was trying to, not because I'd changed anything that I was eating or how I was moving, because my body, the body I'd been ignoring for years, the body I'd been pushing through exhaustion and headaches and every signal that it sent to me, eventually found a way to make itself heard. And I couldn't explain that away. I developed stress induced IBS. My gut, which processes everything that the brain can't, started processing the weight of what I was carrying. And I kept going. I kept turning up and I kept being called Superwoman. And that is what burnout looks like. Not falling apart, not being unable to get out of bed for some people, losing 14 kilograms while still answering every email, attending every meeting, maintaining every performance, and being praised for it. So if you've been called Superwoman or Superman, or something along those lines, and something in you flinched when you heard it, then this episode is for you. So, I want to be honest with where I am right now. I am not talking about burnout from the other side. I'm currently signed off. I'm in the middle of it, in recovery with CBT, learning how to see the signs. I've just spent years of training myself to ignore it. And I'm telling you, it's not because I have it figured out, but because I think this is a useful version of this conversation, the honest one. And the honest one is I am still very much within it. So everything that I'm about to share here is from the inside, not the outside. And I think that might be exactly where you are too. So, the headaches, if you've listened to my previous episode, I've already told you about. The ones where I convinced myself they were a brain tumour rather than accept what they actually were, but it also went much further than that. I actually stopped exercising completely, and previously I was a personal trainer, so exercise has always been such a huge part of my life. But I was so exhausted that the things that I'd always done to feel like myself, the movement, the outlet, the space that was mine, I just couldn't reach them anymore. So I stopped doing anything I enjoyed. Not dramatically, but one by one, the things that filled me up just fell away. And I kept telling myself that I'd get back to them when things calmed down. And things didn't calm down. They never do when you're the one generating the pace. And then there was the part that I find the hardest to say. I was becoming overwhelmed by small things, ordinary things. My children, the noise and the need and the beautiful, relentless chaos of them. The thing that I love most in my life was becoming something I couldn't hold. I was snappy, I was miserable to be around. And the gap between who I was presenting as at work and who I was actually at home, the gap was widening every single week. And, the body keeps score. Mine was keeping it in kilograms and gut spasms in the way that I flinched at things that shouldn't have touched me. And I guess here's what nobody tells you about being called Superwoman. Um, every single time someone said it to me, and people did regularly as a compliment, they obviously did not know the impact of this, but something happened inside me that was the opposite of what they intended. Instead of feeling proud, I felt the weight of it land, like this is what I've got to maintain, and this is the standard, and of course, more. Because that's what compliments do when you're performing, they raise the floor, they tell you that this exhausted, crumbling, hollow version of keeping it all together is what people expect. And so you keep going. Not because you're thriving, because you're terrified of the moment that someone realizes that you're not. Inside, while people were calling me Superwoman, I was absolutely crumbling. Physically, mentally, I was disappearing. But I'd gotten so good at the performance that nobody could see it, including me sometimes as well. We are very good at, perhaps being slightly delusional and pretending that this is us. I kept masking and I kept convincing myself, along with everyone else, that that was what I was doing and that was the right thing. So I'm going to tell you about two distinct moments where the mask definitely cracked for me. The first was around about 2 years ago, and I was on a course, a Future Leaders program, of course, and we did an exercise where you had to basically fill in this shield: who you are inside and who you are outside of work, what you value, what you want to pass on. And I opened up to my small group and I proudly said that I wanted to show my children that hard work gets you far. I thought that was a really, really important message to kind of send. And the coach, she stopped me. And this was a really, really defining moment. I'd already told them about like the whole brain tumour situation. And she looked at me and she said, "Are you teaching them that hard work gets you far? Or because you're in a state of burnout right now, are you teaching them that burnout is acceptable? That burnout is the price we pay?" And if I'm honest, I have thought about that question almost every single day, because ultimately what I do now is probably in some way going to affect my children and the way that they see the world. And because the answer I didn't say out loud was, I don't know, I genuinely don't know which one it is. And if I'm honest, if I'm really honest, I think it might be the second one. I cannot let that be what my children learn from watching me. I never want them to think that the state of burnout is an acceptable one. And I think the movement at the moment on social media is very much about slowing down and being intentional, and I am really trying hard to do that. The second moment was actually a lot more recent, only a few weeks ago, in fact. After a work meeting, I ended up in absolute tears to my director. And I sat there and I thought, "Claire, what on earth are you doing? Is this all worth it?" Not dramatically, just quietly in the middle of my own life. Is this worth it? And I think there's something underneath all of this that I want to name, because I think a lot of you will recognize it. My inner voice, the one that's been running constantly for as long as I can remember, tells me that I'm not good enough, that people who seem to like me are actually too good for me, and it's only a matter of time before they realize it, and that I'm going to get found out. That one slip, one mistake, one meeting that doesn't go perfectly, and I lose everything that I've built. Everyone around me thinks that I'm good at what I do, and the fear is that the second I believe that myself, I'll relax. And the second that I relax, I'll fall apart. That's not ambition. That's not drive. That's a nervous system that never learned that it was allowed to rest. For me, a lot of this does connect back to ADHD, to years of genuinely finding things harder than they looked, masking effort and building a belief that only way to stay safe was always to do more, always be more, never stop, and never ever let anyone see the cost. The cost for me last year was 14 kilograms. The cost was my gut. The cost was the look on my children's faces when their mum was there, but actually not really there. That cost is too high. It was always too high. So where am I now? I'm currently signed off. I'm in CBT, working on the intrusive thoughts, The ones that tell me I'll get found out, that I'm not enough, and that I have to earn my place again and again and again. And I want to be clear, I genuinely don't know if I'll ever fully recover. I don't think burnout works like that, not for a brain like mine. I think what recovery looks like for me is learning to spot the signs earlier, learning to trust my body when it speaks before it has to shout, learning to be genuinely, learning to be and genuinely kinder to myself. And practically, here's the thing that has actually helped: setting minimal targets for the day, not a huge list that I will never get to the end of. 3 things, maybe 2, and then actually noticing when I hit them, because the feeling of hitting 2 realistic targets is incomparably better to the feeling of failing 20 impossible ones. And whilst that might sound small, it isn't. For a brain that has spent its whole life setting impossible standards and then punishing itself for not meeting them, choosing a target that you can't actually reach is a radical act. So, if you're being called Superwoman right now, I want to say this to you directly. It is not a compliment you have to live up to. It is a signal worth paying attention to, because the gap between who you're performing as and who you actually are, the gap has a cost and you're paying it, even if no one else can see it yet. Be kinder to yourself than I was. Set your own expectations. Start small and please, please notice when you're hitting targets, not only when you're missing them. You deserve to be well, not performing wellness, actually well. There's a link in the description to join the Weighted Blanket community on Facebook. If any of this has landed with you, if you recognised yourself in it or someone you love, I'd genuinely love to hear from you. Come and find us in the Weighted Blanket community on Facebook, or drop me a message. You don't have to have anything figured out. Just come as you are. And there's a question that I'm going to be asking every single guest on this podcast, and I want to ask it of you too. What do you wish someone had told you about yourself or someone you love before you had to figure it out the hard way? Come and tell me in the community or in the comments. I'd genuinely love to know. You're not alone. I'll see you in the next one.